as we look at a bit of what is being called evidence of ancient atomic warfare, or simply atomic explosions. It is important to make a distinction. We have pondered the question of the technological sophistication of pre-flood civilizations. It may be that if it existed, it was part of the wickedness that God saw, as referenced by the quote from Genesis 6. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, men and animals, and creatures that move along the ground, and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. The most interesting story on these pages is the absolutely true story of the Oklo mines. On the other hand, there will be consternation that would result among materialists, evolutionists, if it could be proven that this technology did in fact previously exist. As for believers, such a confirmation could only bolster our confidence that when we say to materialists that there are things in heaven and earth that are not dreamed of in your philosophy, that is proving truer every day. There are some interesting things to consider, and we should just take a look at it and form a conclusion. It may well be that we will reject all of the evidence or merely some of it. It's certainly worth a couple of minutes of our no doubt valuable time to give a look. The evidence will largely fit in 4 categories. 1. Descriptions in what are thought to be the oldest written texts by man still in existence. 2. Discovery of archaeological sites which demonstrate characteristics, including high levels of radiation, consistent with an atomic explosion. 3. Physical evidence, changes in the sand, similar to those found at the site of current-day atomic explosions. 4. Evidence of depleted uranium with plutonium products. When the first atomic bomb exploded in New Mexico, the desert sand turned to fused green glass. This fact, according to the magazine Free World, has given certain archaeologists a turn. They have been digging in the ancient Euphrates Valley and have uncovered the lair of agrarian culture 8,000 years old, and a lair of herdsman culture much older, and a still older caveman culture. Olive green trinitite formed in New Mexico as a result of atomic testing in 1945. The bomb melted the sand into this greenish glass. It was named trinitite after Trinity. Trinity was the first place in history where a plutonium bomb exploded. Recently, they reached another layer of fused green glass. It is well known that atomic detonations on or above a sandy desert will melt the silicon in the sand and turn the surface of the earth into a sheet of glass. But if sheets of ancient desert glass can be found in various parts of the world, does it mean that atomic wars were fought in the ancient past, or, at the very least, that atomic testing occurred in the dim ages of history? This is a startling theory, but one that is not lacking in evidence, as such ancient sheets of desert glass are a geological fact. Lightning strikes can sometimes fuse sand. Meteorologists contend, but this is always in a distinctive route-like pattern. These strange geological oddities are called fulgurites and manifest as branched tubular forms rather than as flat sheets of fused sand. Therefore, lightning is largely ruled out as the cause of such finds by geologists, who prefer to hold on to the theory of a meteor or comet strike as the cause. The problem with this theory is that there is usually no crater associated with these anomalous sheets of glass. Brad Stager and Ron Calais report in their book, Mysteries of Time and Space, that Albion W. Hart, one of the first engineers to graduate from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, was assigned an engineering project in the interior of Africa. While he and his men were traveling to an almost inaccessible region, they first had to cross a great expanse of desert. At the time he was puzzled and quite unable to explain a large expanse of greenish glass which covered the sands as far as he could see. Later on, during his life, he passed by the White Sands area after the first atomic explosion there, and he recognized the same type of silica fusion which he had seen 50 years earlier in the African desert. Interestingly, Manhattan Project chief scientist Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer was known to be familiar with ancient Sanskrit literature. In an interview conducted after he watched the first atomic test, he quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all felt that way. When asked in an interview at Rochester University, 7 years after the Alamogordo nuclear test, whether that was the first atomic bomb ever to be detonated, his reply was, "Well, yes, in modern history." Pieces of Libyan desert glass weighing as much as 16 pounds are found in an oval area measuring approximately 130 by 53 kilometers. The clear to yellowish-green pieces are concentrated in sand-free corridors between north-south dune ridges. The origin of this immense deposit of glass has been attributed by some to ancient nuclear explosions and alien activities. But investigating scientists have always been satisfied with a meteor impact hypothesis. A recent study also opts for this explanation, although no one has found a crater of suitable size or other supporting evidence. This Libyan glass object was found in King Tut's tomb. Scientists discover 6 ancient zones of depleted uranium with plutonium products. There are at least 6 zones of depleted uranium, usually means mined, and with plutonium as a byproduct. You've got to really be trying to manufacture plutonium, it's a complicated process. Yet, scientists studying these zones have a priori, of course, decided not to consider that man was involved. They place its occurrence safely billions of years ago. They assume that a breeding reaction could occur naturally when no such evidence of that exists, and creating a breed reactor was once a technological holy grail which was difficult to achieve on purpose. They theorize that although it must have happened naturally in the distant past, that we need not worry about it occurring now, as conditions differ. Nature designed the reactor such that its spent fuel and dangerous byproducts were contained. Scientists use the principle of uniformism to draw conclusions about the future and the past. How could fission reactions happen in nature, when such a high degree of engineering, physics, and acute, detailed attention went into building a nuclear reactor? Perrin and the other French scientists concluded that the only other uranium samples with similar levels of the isotopes found at Oklo could be found in the used nuclear fuel produced by modern reactors. In fact, the analysis of the nuclear waste in the burned rocks demonstrated that plutonium had also been created. When excavations of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro reached the street level, they discovered skeletons scattered about the cities, many holding hands and sprawling in the streets as if some instant, horrible doom had taken place. People were just lying, unburied, in the streets of the city. And these skeletons are thousands of years old. Even by traditional archaeological standards, what could cause such a thing? Why did the bodies not decay or get eaten by wild animals? Furthermore, there is no apparent cause of a physically violent death. These skeletons are among the most radioactive ever found, on par with those at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. At one site, Soviet scholars found a skeleton which had a radioactive level 50 times greater than normal. Other cities have been found in northern India that show indications of explosions of great magnitude. One such city, found between the Ganges and the mountains of Rajma, seems to have been subjected to intense heat. Huge masses of walls and foundations of the ancient city are fused together, literally vitrified. And since there is no indication of a volcanic eruption at Mohenjo-daro or at the other cities, the intense heat to melt clay vessels can only be explained by an atomic blast or some other unknown weapon. The cities were wiped out entirely. While the skeletons have been carbon dated to 2500 BC, we must keep in mind that carbon dating involves measuring the amount of radiation left. When atomic explosions are involved, that makes them seem much younger. Giant unexplained crater near Bombay. Another curious sign of an ancient nuclear war in India is a giant crater near Bombay. The nearly circular 2,154-meter diameter Lonar crater, located 400 kilometers northeast of Bombay and aged at less than 50,000 years old, could be related to nuclear warfare of antiquity. No trace of any meteoric material has been found at the site or in the vicinity. And this is the world's only known impact crater in basalt. Indications of great shock, from a pressure exceeding 600,000 atmospheres, and intense, abrupt heat, indicated by basalt glass spherules, can be ascertained from the site. The crater is formed in the basalt rock of thickness 600 to 700 meters. This rock is made of many layers or flows which were laid by volcanic activity at various times. 5 of such flows are exposed at the crater rim. Thickness of these flows ranges from 5 to 30 meters. The crater is about 150 meters deep and has average diameter of 1.4 miles. The elevated rim consists of 25 meters of bedrock and 5 meters of ejecta over it. This ejecta blanket is spread over about 1,350 meters away from the crater rim and slopes away by 26 degrees. The uppermost region of ejecta contains the deposits that were melted due to the impact. A nuclear catastrophe in Paleo-Indian times? We introduce here a remarkable theory of terrestrial catastrophism that seems to be supported by evidence that is equally remarkable. One of the authors of this theory is identified as a nuclear scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley Nuclear Laboratory. The second author is a consultant. The author's credentials seem so good that we must take a close look at their extraordinary claims concerning a natural phenomenon that they believe reset radiocarbon clocks in north-central North America and, potentially, elsewhere on the planet. In the author's words, our research indicates that the entire Great Lakes region, and beyond, was subjected to particle bombardment and a catastrophic nuclear irradiation that produced secondary thermal neutrons from cosmic ray interactions. Desert glass scarab. What produced the intense heat in the desert? In 1996 in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Italian mineralogist Vincenzo de Michele spotted an unusual yellow-green gem in the middle of one of Tutankhamun's necklaces. The jewel was tested and found to be glass, but intriguingly it is older than the earliest Egyptian civilization. Working with Egyptian geologist Ali Barakat, they traced its origins to unexplained chunks of glass found scattered in the sand in a remote region of the Sahara Desert. But the glass is itself a scientific enigma. How did it get to be there and who or what made it?